So Parliament has scrapped the inquiry into procurement processes that led to Karpowership winning the bid to add power to the grid. The majority of the members of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy voted to do away with the inquiry into the Risk Mitigation Independent Power Producer Procurement Program. This initiative is meant to add 2,000 megawatts of new power to South Africa's electricity grid and to alleviate electricity supply constraints. What does this all mean? Well, let's hope that Liz McDaid, a strategic lead at the Green Connection, can help us make sense of it. Liz, always a pleasure to see you. This very same committee has now, gone a step back. What do we need to understand about this latest development and how we got here?
Well, we are very disappointed by this, and we actually would say that this is another instance of Parliament failing to account to the people, because it was actually in April 2021, shortly after Karpower was made one of the preferred bidders, that we wrote to Parliament and asked them to take some action and to investigate. And some of the things we were saying is the process hasn't been followed. They were supposed to have contracts with Eskom, with Transnet, they were supposed to have an environmental authorization. They had none of that. And so we were concerned about what was happening. And we got no response. So although we did hear that the letter was mentioned, in June, 15 organizations now wrote to the Speaker asking for an investigation and saying that it's not just an energy issue because there were various ministers involved, the Department of Environment Affairs, Transport, etc., public enterprises through Eskom signing an agreement. And in June, finally, there was now an agreement. There should be an investigation from the Parliament that we understood it. Then nothing happened till December. And in December, they suddenly said they would have terms of reference. And now they've gone backwards again. But at no time in that entire time period did anybody from that committee write to the civil society organizations and thank them for bringing it to attention, or actually engage with us to find out what were the things maybe that we could put on the table to show them where the problem was. So we just, from my view, we were just ignored. And now, in the meantime, what we have seen is Karpower actually has no environmental authorization. They are still trying to appeal it. They've had that the losing bidder, DNG, take them to court, lose, and now seems to be coming back again to appeal. And every time there's a deadline for financial closure, nobody makes it. So our big question is, this is power that my understanding is that's supposed to be on the grid by June 2022. It's not very months away. But it's just been mired in controversy, and now we won't have that power. And maybe the minister should rather have just fast-tracked more renewables under the normal process, because maybe we would have got there faster. This doesn't seem to be going anywhere fast.
But what do you suspect is at play, especially with the decision to rescind on the investigation?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we don't have an insider view, and in fact, when some of our member organizations tried to watch the parliamentary committee yesterday, didn't seem to be being broadcast. So, again, like, where's the transparency? So we really do need to push for why are these decisions happening, and we don't know, but it seems that at a political level there's a huge push to find favor with the Karpowerships, despite the illegal and irregularities that are existing.
What do we know, or what do we need to know about Karpowership and what happens in the interim? So they still retain the contract?
They don't have a final contract yet because they had to go through all these steps. So this thing called financial closure, which is when they can actually sign on the dotted line and say they've met all the conditions and therefore they can go ahead. So they haven't got that because they don't have, for example, an environmental authorization. And even in the processes which we were allowed to comment on, for example, there were things redacted.
Liz, are you still there? We're just losing you there a tad. Okay. We've lost that connection to Liz McDaid or not. Thank you, Liz. You still there? Please finish your thought.
Sorry, that seemed to be a load-shedding thought. The question being, we're hearing a lot about the diesel costs. We know due to the war there's a lot of concern around the oil and gas prices. In terms of the Karpowerships, that contract, as far as we understand, was linked to the international price of gas. So if we had signed that thing, we would now be sitting with the same issue where Eskom would be coming back to us saying, oh dear, this is now costing us more, so you guys have to have more increases in electricity. So I think the sooner we can get through the fog and go for more renewables, start bringing in these new technologies, these battery storage things, the quicker, the better from our perspective.
This risk mitigation independent power producer procurement program, which is an initiative to add some 2,000 megawatts of power onto the system. What do we need to know about that?
Well, that's the thing that went wrong. So by putting this out, and I'm trying to kind of make the analogy, it's like if you have a factory that runs 24 hours, it doesn't mean that everybody who works there has to work 24 hours. It just means that you have to have shifts and people have to come in and out to make sure the system's stable. So if you think about it, what that procurement contract said was that every worker, every power station, has to work 24 hours. And so that puts the price up because now you have to have lots of different things. Whereas if you're just a solar or just a wind or just whether it's a gas or whether you're just some other power station that only provides power at certain times, put it all together and you've got a system that works. But each one will be then cost effective to build. So that has been some of the major criticisms around that power system, the logic behind putting such a emergency power system out.
Just finally for us, Karpowership, is it a South African owned entity?
Well, on paper, I think, but basically it's a foreign company which is going to bring ships in, which we are going to pay, well, if it goes ahead, we would pay for. And at any point, as happened in other parts of the world, they can unplug and sail away or tell us, well, the price has gone up, pay or we leave.
And there's no South African company that can do this?
Well, I think they've got the niche globally, but I'm sure there are many South African companies that can build power stations to provide what Karpower is offering.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Liz McDaid, Strategic Lead, Green at the Green Connection.